Welcome to The Warehouse. Have you ever heard a sermon and thought, how in the world did he discover that? Or where did he get that idea? Every week at Cornerstone Church, two teams dig into the biblical text that'll be taught during our weekend services. We spend hours talking about the text, the context, the culture of the time, you name it. But you can't stuff all that into a 30-minute message. That's where we come in. We're going to show you the stuff in the warehouse that didn't make it to the stage. Hey, Stephanie, what's your favorite Christmas movie?
Ooh, I would have to say Elf.
Elf.
Yes.
Why is that your favorite?
I don't know. I find it super funny.
It is funny.
And I like it. But normally, like Christmas tradition at my family's, we watch Polar Express almost every Christmas Eve.
You got quiet at the Polar Express. Were you embarrassed about that at all?
No, I'm kind of over it. But it's a tradition.
It would be on pretty much the bottom of my list of Christmas movies.
Right.
Not the very bottom.
Yeah, for 9 years, I worked on trains, and I shall never again spend time looking at them.
Do you not want to sing
Voluntarily.
the Hot Cocoa song?
That's a
I
good
don't
song.
even know it.
It's a good song.
It's pretty decent,
all
but
right.
we do that, and then we open like Christmas pajamas.
Oh,
Okay.
Nice. Nathan, what's your favorite?
Somebody pointed out on Polar Express how all their eyes look super dead. And if you ever watch it now, it's like super
Wow.
creepy.
I'm going to have
Their
to
eyes
watch
show no
this.
emotion. Yeah, go look up a YouTube video or something.
Yeah.
My favorite, I actually was going to say Elf, but so that one would be like the one that makes me laugh the most.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull a little bit deeper cut. Andrew and Ronnie Pearson introduced us to Arthur Christmas. It's an animated one, and it absolutely cracks me up. So those two make it into the rotation every year. Everything else is kind of like, I don't know, may or may not make the cut for the year.
Ah,
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, most people haven't, at least as far as I know, but it's very funny.
Okay.
Arthur Christmas, you would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Man, all right. The answer, of course, is Die Hard.
Yeah.
The
So
deep
much Christmas
sigh.
spirit.
If you want traditional Christmassy, you got to fit the narrative, then it might be White Christmas.
Okay.
It's hard to beat a White Christmas because even when it's time, of course, after Thanksgiving is the time where people can start listening to Christmas music. Of course, I think as a church, is that where we stand?
No.
Generally, that's where we start like introducing Christmas carols and stuff into the services. Yeah.
So that's a hard line.
Yeah.
No hard line.
Okay.
Oh, no hard line. But yeah, so anytime in the next month, one of us in our house will start saying snow, and then we'll start singing the song from White Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But Die Hard is the answer.
Oh, okay.
Interesting that we're talking about Christmas. We're jumping into a new sermon series, and we're following the liturgical calendar going into Advent. Some of you who grew up in churches that celebrated such things throughout the year, you're familiar with Advent.
Mm-hmm.
Advent, Nathan.
Yeah, Advent specifically means the arrival of someone or something. If you look up just a definition online, you'll find the arrival of a notable person, thing, or event. And so whenever we're talking about in the Christmas season, we're specifically talking about, obviously, the arrival of Jesus. And there are notes of like anticipation with that, like something that has been longed for a long time. And so whenever we see the advent of Christ, it's this like monumental event that's been, it's a culmination of a long time of waiting. And then it also refers to as his second coming, whenever we now are in the place of just waiting for Christ to come back for his own. That would be like a second advent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, outstanding. So here we are, new sermon series. Going into Advent, we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. And some of you who know the Bible are really excited about what's coming in Matthew 1, verses 1 to 17. And so this week's theme is hope. Through the Advent season, we'll talk about different aspects of Advent.
Mm-hmm.
And today, hope. Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. Stephanie, what'd you have as a big idea this time around?
God uses broken people to fulfill his promises.
That's good.
For me, I said that Jesus is the long-awaited offspring of Abraham and the king on David's throne.
Oh man, so
A little
good.
foreshadowing in your big idea.
Well, yeah.
I like that a
because our
lot.
big idea is supposed to represent the text. So
It's supposed to shadow the thing that it foreshadows. This is cool. Parker, I wrote down his yesterday. He said, Jesus fulfills the promise of the Messiah that was expected, but completely unexpected. I love that a lot.
that tension's fantastic.
Yeah. And I had that our hope isn't generated from our faithfulness, as we'll see, I guess. I guess I did some foreshadowing a little bit as well.
Ooh.
Nice. Look at me. So context is going to be a little bit different because in our last series, man, we were just digging into the different cities Jesus was talking to, digging up information about them, mispronouncing the gods that the citizens
All
of
the
the towns worshipped. So
We'll
thankful.
still
It's all
say
Greek to me.
things.
Yeah, it's all Greek to Nathan. Outstanding. But here we are. Context, Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. Who wants to go?
So let's just talk for a second about the book of Matthew. Like, who was
Ooh,
Matthew?
yeah, yeah.
Stephanie, take it away.
Okay, so the author is Matthew,
Hey.
also known as Levi. He was a tax collector. So this was pretty great because it means he had awesome note-taking skills. So it was good for him to document whenever he was with Jesus and doing his life with him. And he was also a disciple of Jesus. So
And as a tax collector, he would have been a Jew ethnically by birth, and then he would have been conscribed by the Romans to collect the Roman tax from everyone around, which would have included his Jewish brothers and sisters, which made him not super popular, probably.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this was written to a Jewish audience. I love the difference from hopping from Revelation to this, where Revelation, it was to a specific church, to a specific person. This is addressing and presenting who Jesus is and what he has done. So this is for us, like for everyone, just like those were too, but
Yeah, good call. And therein, so Matthew would have been called Matthew by the Romans that he was working with, but his Jewish name was Levi.
And whenever we talk about it being written to a Jewish audience, it does make a difference in the way he writes, because there's some things that, like, whenever you read Luke that's written to a more Gentile audience, he'll talk about the Passover and then give a parenthetical explanation of, like, hey, this is a feast that the Jews observe. Because he's having to explain it to them because they don't have the context for it. Versus whenever Matthew's talking to Jews, he can kind of assume some things that they understand because it's part of their day in, day out life. And they understand prophecies better because they've been steeped in it their entire life. They understand their what these different rhythms of feasts would have meant. This genealogy is just like bread and butter for them because they're used to memorizing genealogies and everything.
Yeah, I love that today we're talking about 1 through 17, because this is probably something that people normally skip right over,
Right.
because it's a
Yeah.
genealogy. It's a list of names that we may or may not know. And so I'm guilty of it too, where I kind of speed it up. Whenever I'm listening to the Bible app, I'll speed up my, to make it go a little quicker. I'm like, it's fine. But then just diving into who they are has been super good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, raise your hand out there if you would skip over this part. Because
I see
I was
that
one
hand.
of them. Yeah. Yeah. And it's super cool that we're going into this section of Matthew after spending so much time in Revelation, which is also a big chunk of Bible that people have a tendency not to spend a lot of time in.
yeah, that's good. I didn't even think of it like that. So fun fact, this was not the first gospel written. It would have actually probably been Mark that was written first. This was written anywhere between 55 to 65 AD. And this is showing the legal lineage of Jesus from Abraham and David. So it shows his royal line through David and his messianic line through Abraham.
Nailed it. And so, yeah, she let you in on the secret. We're talking about Matthew's description of Jesus's genealogy. all the way back to Abraham. And you guys are super excited, right? I can feel it even here. But there are a couple things about this because we know, people who study genealogy, their own genealogy, and the trick is to figure out how far back they can go and were there any notable people back there. And I'm a son of the American Revolution. So I can put that pin. I am.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have no idea how, but my grandmother would have known and probably could have asked her. But this genealogy in particular is a teleology.
Oh,
man.
You got it. Rewind.
Teleological genealogy.
Nailed it.
Man.
First try.
See, pride cometh before a tongue twist. So this is a teleological genealogy. So these genealogies culminate in a final figure in the lineage. So we're not going backwards to study what's going on. The whole point of this genealogy here, this list in Matthew, is to realize for us that there is one end point in this story. There's one end point in the Bible, and it's Jesus. And there is another, I'm going to do it again just because I messed up the first one. There's another teleological genealogy in the Bible, and it's in Ruth chapter 4. And that one ends in David.
Nice.
Good job.
David was the telos of Ruth's genealogy. Jesus is our telos, which means the end or the fulfillment.
Yeah. And as we were talking about it, so this was a kind of fun, like back and forth. We were just talking about the difference between those two words because genealogy comes from the word Genesis, which means beginning. Like where did this begin? And so you're tracing it back. And then telos is the Greek word for end. So it has that, like, we're going to trace back from the beginning. How did we get to this? But we're going to go at it through the lens of looking for how did we get to this particular purpose or this end, this one person.
Yeah. Wow.
Kind of
In this
facts.
look for the end and the beginning, we're finding the Alpha and the Omega. Oh, come on. And we'll see you next week.
Nope.
You want to keep going?
We will.
Yeah,
but we can keep going.
All right.
Right.
too.
Let's keep it going.
You have other
Context
stuff?
Oh, for sure. The genealogy is showing that this is the one that they've been waiting on, kind of like what we just said. And yesterday we added verse 1 as part of the context. So I did that today with that as well.
Let's do it. You want to read it? Verse 1?
Go for it.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you have a better reading voice.
Ooh.
It's so good.
I'll try to
So good.
drop down even more.
So good.
The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham.
Yeah. So Matthew frequently refers to Jesus as the son of David, which is super neat to me, just because as we read in Revelation, Jesus holds the key of David. So I just love it when scripture kind of holds scripture. And over again, we constantly see that. Him being presented as Jesus Christ shows that he's a man and his deity. Christ is not his last name, but it shows that he is Messiah, the anointed one. Jesus means Yeshua or Joshua, Yahweh saves, or the Lord is my salvation. If we recall back to Joshua, he was the leader appointed by God to take his people into the promised land. Now we have Jesus, the leader, the appointed by God to take his people, sinful people, into eternal life to reign and rule with him forever. So
and with that, the son of David, I just think of, we talked about how David was the king over Israel in their golden days. If you think of like that, for us, whenever we, as Americans, we think about like the greatest generation, right? And so for Israel, they would have looked back on the time of David as like whenever they peaked.
Yeah.
That was Israel in its heyday. And so whenever they think of a king coming, they're thinking, who's going to restore that kind of prosperity to this nation?
And so even with Solomon coming after and being wisest, richest, they still point to David.
Yeah. So one of Matthew's goals in his gospel is to talk about Jesus as king and what his kingdom is like. So whenever you encounter the Beatitudes in Matthew 5-7, he is specifically laying out the laws of the land for his kingdom citizens. This is how people in my kingdom behave.
Yeah. We also see in 2 Samuel 7, we see God made a covenant with David that his seed would endure into the end and that his honored son would reign on the throne, which was immediate reference to Solomon. However, God promised that the throne would be established forever. And so we get to see that through Jesus. Some Old Testament references that I love that Jesus fulfilled, like prophecy, was in Isaiah 9:6-7. For a child will be born for us, a son will be given to us, and the government will be on his shoulders. He will be named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. The dominion will be vast and prosperity will never end. He will reign on the throne of David and over his kingdom to establish and sustain it with justice, righteousness from now on and forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will be accomplished this. I just love that.
Yeah.
And that's hundreds of years before Jesus is born.
Yeah.
And like still so specific to what he would do and who he was going to be. So it's like Matthew's not just choosing to randomly name drop David and Abraham in there. It's not coincidental that Jesus comes from these two lines or this one line. It's the fulfillment of thousands of years of prophecy, with Abraham being, around a couple thousand years, around 2,000 years before Jesus. And yeah.
So we should definitely set this up here on the front end that Matthew has Jesus' genealogy here to show that he is the promised king, that he is the one who was foretold. And so we're going to spend a lot of time today digging back into the Old Testament, talking about who some of these folks were, why it was significant. But we're going to be doing a whole lot of reading of what the Old Testament had to say about Jesus and about the people in his family tree.
Yep.
Yeah, because if Jewish leaders could prove that he was not the descendant of David, that would immediately disqualify him as the Messiah. So it was important for him to set this up, to set the stage. Another important thing that I think we should mention is that from Malachi to Matthew, there was 400 years of silence. So this is they've been waiting for him and waiting, and finally we have him right here. And also the time he was born, they were under Roman rule. So they thought whenever he was coming that it was just going to squash it here on earth. But Jesus was talking about in his kingdom.
So chronologically, the last thing that happened in the Old Testament was Nehemiah, if I'm remembering right from our Christology series. And so Micah prophesied a little earlier than that, but literarily, if that's a word, as the literature was set up, Micah is the last book.
Malachi is the last book.
What did I say? Micah.
You said
Malachi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Malachi is the last book in the Old Testament. And that silent period lasted 400 years.
And when we say silence, we mean specifically that there was not a word from the Lord for his people.
Right.
So they didn't literally sit around in silence.
They were
Right.
It was
They
like
were not
God.
mimes.
They were not mimes.
They were not mimes.
Yeah, as far as we know, there's some debate. No, just kidding. There's no debate. We're specifically talking about Israel was used to having a prophet in their midst all the time, and God delivering words to them, and they didn't often heed them, but at least God was talking to them.
Right.
And then God just stopped talking.
Yeah,
for 400 years.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Stephanie referenced 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 16 in 2 Samuel 7, talking about David. Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. That's one of the major areas of significance as to why being a son of David is important here.
Yeah, and then I saw a reference to Psalm 132:11. So the Lord swore to David a sure oath from which he will not turn back. One of the sons of your body I will set on your throne. So not just metaphorically, David, hey, it's going to be your kingdom, but literally it's going to be someone from your bloodline.
Yeah, and then we see with Abraham. Do you guys have anything else on David before I move on to Abraham?
Just more. We're at Psalm 89, also 3 and 4. Verse 4 specifically, I will establish your offspring forever and build your throne for all generations. So setting this up that Jesus is David's son.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of cross references in there so if you got a study Bible and you can check those cross references, it's pretty cool to go back and see all the times that God promises that there will be someone who sits on the throne of David.
Yeah.
So cool.
And also the son of Abraham.
Yeah. So with Abraham, we see God's promised blessing would come to the whole world. So once again, we thrust back into the Old Testament, all the way back to Genesis 12. Here is God's word to Abraham. Go out from your land, your relatives, your father's house, to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who treat you with contempt, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Based on this passage, we see God will form a covenant people, that God will give them a promised inheritance on earth, and that God will use them to accomplish a global purpose. Abraham and those who come from him will be a blessing to the families on earth.
Which we see play out in this genealogy here in just a minute, which is pretty cool. Like, it's not just like limited to Jews in this genealogy, but it's a blessing to all the families of the earth.
I thought it was really fun to read. So Genesis 22 is God not reestablishing, but restating his promise after Abraham was willing to sacrifice Isaac, if that's what God wanted him to do. And because of his willingness, Genesis 22, 15 to 17 is talking here, but specifically 17 and 18, God says, I will surely bless you, make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants, the Hebrew word there is word for seed. So your seed, your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, and here's the same one, it's that same word, seed. Your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Now, in chapter 17, God had been talking to Abraham too about his seed, his offspring, his descendants. And in chapter 17, the plural form of that word is used. But here in verse 18, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. That is a singular word. So Genesis 22:18, offspring is singular. So it's not a multiple seed like he's talking about sands on the seashore or stars in the sky. There is one offspring that all nations on earth will be blessed because of. And here we would say that that's Jesus.
And so just to like reaffirm that interpretive work you're doing, just like based on, plural versus singular and all that, Galatians 3:16 says, now the promises were made to Abraham and to his offspring. It does not say, so this is still in Galatians 3, it does not say, and to offsprings, referring to many, but referring to one, and to your offspring, who is Christ. So that the Apostle Paul in Galatians is doing that same interpretive work of saying like, hey, this isn't just a general promise to all these descendants, but it's a specific promise of Jesus Christ coming.
Oh, man. And so on the list of people who do exegesis really well, you'd say Paul and then Jay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, those are two of the people.
Those are people who have talked about Genesis 17 and 22.
Yes, I can go there with you. You're doing great, man.
And it's fun too. So we're about to jump into all the names that we skip forward. Stephanie, do you have anything else about Abraham?
No, I don't think so.
So, but Matthew 1 starts the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. If you go back to Genesis chapter 5, this same kind of expression occurs in the sense that it's a book of the generations. So in Genesis 5, it's this book of the generations of Adam, and it's the same idea. It's book of the generations of Jesus Christ. So again, going back to the Old Testament, there is precedent as to why we're going here. And so here we go. Yesterday, Michael separated these into a couple sections. So we're going to go, how about verse 2 to verse 6 and do the same thing and then work through it chronologically there. So verses 2 to verse 6, Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, Perez the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Amminadab, Aminadab, the father of Nahshon. Nahshon, the father of Salmon. Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed by Ruth. Obed, the father of Jesse. And Jesse, the father of David, the king. David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah.
Nicely done.
You did good.
There was a whole lot of names in there.
The key is confidence.
Yeah.
I might have misspelled every name in there, but it sounded like I knew what I was
bought
talking
it.
about.
I think
For
you
sure.
did great. I can't wait until you read, 7 through 12.
Yeah, there's some
That'll be
tricky
fun.
ones.
Yeah.
There's some tricky ones.
Hey, excuse me while I practice. Parker,
Jay's
mute
just
my
going to
mic.
step
Mute my
out
mic.
here for a minute.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've talked around hey, this is something that we often skip over. And I still whenever I hit some of the lists in Numbers or Exodus, sometimes I still have a hard time, and I do have to kind of skim them a little bit to see which ones I know.
Yeah.
But one of the best questions to ask whenever you're reading scripture is why is this included in the Bible? Why did God see fit? Because if we really believe that all scripture is breathed out by God and is useful for teaching and reproof and correction and training in righteousness, then we should be asking a question why did God put this in here?
All didn't mean some.
Right. Yeah. And so it's going to have different usefulness to us than it did to the Jews, because it's not just written straight to us. We should interpret it through that lens. But so asking the question, why is this genealogy here? And we've already kind of answered that. I just like to introduce that interpretive question into this. So it's here to prove that Jesus is the son of David and the son of Abraham. It's also here to show us some interesting things about the people who are in the bloodline of Christ.
Yes.
So what are some of those interesting things?
So I love how it starts with father. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob. Just there you see, I think you brought it up yesterday really well, Nathan, with Abraham. At first he had Ishmael, and then he had Jacob. And Jacob, Isaac. Sorry. But Isaac, he was born to Sarah. And so it's setting the stage for Mary, because it was a miraculous birth. She actually laughed, and that's kind of what his name means, is he who laughs, I think, right? Something like that.
Or son of laughter, I think, maybe.
Yeah, son of laughter. Because she was like, this isn't going to happen to me. I'm old. And so with Mary, it is too miraculous birth.
That's fun. Bookended here in the genealogy. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, just running through this list. This is not a list of morally impeccable people. That was morally impeccable people.
Wow, yeah. I like that.
Purple people eater. You've got, Abraham lied about Sarah being his sister instead of his wife because he was scared of what was going to happen to him. And then
because it was his half sister.
It was a half truth. Yes. So, which makes it a half lie, which makes it still a lie.
Yep.
A little leaven. Leaven's the whole loaf.
And then Isaac, he repeats that same kind of error and then plays favorites with his kids. And then it's just interesting because you have Jacob after that, who is one of two sons. In that time, let's see, I'm going to try to pull out a big word here. It was common for there to be primogeniture, which was the prioritization of the older son over the younger. That the older son would get the birthright and everything in the household. They would get the larger portion of the inheritance and stuff. And it's amazing to see how often God subverted that cultural expectation. So we see that with, even Abraham. You've got Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac's the younger, but he's the true son and gets it. Jacob and Esau. Esau was older, but Jacob gets the blessing, and we see that happen several other times in here as well. So just God, tilting the exptions on their head.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, because that's the church too. We're the second born, the church is. So I just really, because Israel was the firstborn, and then we're the second born as a Gentile.
That's cool.
Whoa. Grafted on the vine. Judah is a fun place to spend a few minutes. Talk. Fun might not be the right word.
Yeah.
But a worthwhile place to stop.
Incesty.
Yeah.
Might be a better word.
That might be a better word. So here's this grand promise that Jacob makes for Judah. Genesis 49, verse 10. He says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yet, Judah was also not the best dude.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Judah had an older son who married Tamar.
He
They
did.
didn't have kids. And so their tradition was for his brother to marry Tamar so that he may have a son to carry on the older brother's name. He didn't procreate with Tamar. And so a younger son who wasn't old enough yet to be Tamar's husband, Judah says, "All right, go back to your family. And when it's time, when he's old enough, we'll come and he'll be your husband." He becomes old enough. Judah doesn't do it. And Tamar sets out a plan to make things right.
Which we see all of that in Genesis 38. So yeah, she's the first woman to be mentioned here in the lineage. She tricks her father-in-law into having sex with her, where she becomes pregnant with twins, but it's all because he messed up. He did not do what he was supposed to do by giving his youngest son. And the cool part about you reading Genesis 49, I think is what you just said,
Yeah.
but the scepter and the staff is whenever after he had sex with her, he left his signet ring and his staff with her to prove that, for him to come back and get it. And that's how she actually proved it was him.
Yeah. So she took him and then presented him to him as proof that it was her.
Yeah, after she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And she was posing as a prostitute
Right.
on the side of the road. So then you also have the fact that Judah goes in thinking that she's a prostitute. So he's like visiting a prostitute.
Yeah.
Like he's in the wrong here very much. And
Oh,
she's
for
like trying
sure.
to, so it's just a messed up situation.
Yeah. And he's number 4 on the list in Jesus's genealogy.
And he was not the first son either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And he'd already
then-
taken part in like selling his younger brother Joseph, who we just spent some time talking about in the Full Potential series. Like Judah was one of the ones who's like, "Hey, let's kill him.
Yeah.
Throw him in the pit."
Yeah. And yet, even in the end, in Revelation chapter 5, we're going to see that when John saw that there was a seal, there was a scroll that no one could open, he is told by one of the elders and so John, he finds this out. There's nobody on the earth that can open this scroll. And yet one of the elders said to me in Revelation 5, verse 5, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals."
Mm-hmm.
Judah.
As Stephanie, as you mentioned a minute ago, like it's really unique that women are mentioned in this genealogy at all because that was not part of their tradition. They would have just tracked them in. So like this is something that as they would read this, they'd be like, "Hang on, that's a mistake. Like why is there a woman in there?"
Yeah.
And it's just neat because you see a lot of Jesus ministry ends up happening like him spending time with the woman at the well, all these different times where he's ministering to women, and that was not something that was culturally okay as far as like women were treated more as property then. So you see God also again subverting expectations there.
Yeah. And then yesterday we talked about, she was a Gentile as well, wasn't she? She was not from the Jewish lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have Rahab. Second, we meet her. She was a prostitute spared when the people of God came into the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And she's the one who housed the spies, right?
yep.
Yeah, so there were the 2 spies, and she hid them, and then the whole thing of like tying a scarlet cord out her window, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then her house was not destroyed whenever the walls of Jericho fell,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yep. So another Gentile woman here because she too was not of the Jewish lineage. And then we have Ruth, which Jay quoted her earlier from her book. And so we actually get her story from Genesis 19 because she was a Moabite.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I just think it's amazing how God uses everything for his purpose and for his glory, something that is not great, into his goodness. But you said incest earlier for Judah and Tamar, which to us, we would not, that's not incest because it's my father-in-law. I'm not related to him. But to them, that totally would have been. So I just kind of wanted to go back on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, fun. So setting aside, Nahshon is a fun story that I found as we were doing some study. So according to a Jewish midrash, midrash is a Jewish form of exegesis where they go through some of their writings. Some Jewish scholars believe that Nahshon was the first person to step into the sea that was parted as the Israelites escaped Egypt. And as he waded out, the waters got head deep, and then the seas parted. So that's nowhere in Scripture itself. We don't see it anywhere. But man, that's a fun picture to have.
Okay, I have questions about that because you're talking about them leaving Egypt, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't Moses raise up his staff and the seas part?
Yes.
And then they walk across on dry land?
Yes.
So how does he walk out before there's...
What a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love it. But I love the picture that maybe he got a little bit impatient and he's ready to go.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just interesting. But
pure conjecture.
Extra biblical.
Pure conjecture.
When I say extra biblical, I don't mean like, wow, that's biblical. I mean, it's like outside of Scripture.
So yeah. There's a difference between super biblical and extra biblical.
Yeah.
Well, back to something that's super biblical. Boaz, the father of Obed, and here's a cool idea that we see in the Old Testament: the idea of a kinsman redeemer. So we talked about Judah and how Judah's sons, their responsibility was to marry Tamar because their brother died, and that was in their culture. That was what they were to do. Yeah. They were to redeem their kinsman so that he would have an heir. And here, Boaz's story is so cool because that's what he was to Rahab, to Ruth. I read Rahab when I should have read Ruth. He was that to Ruth. And
because he was not a brother, but he was like a cousin.
He was
right?
distant cousin. And there was no one else to redeem that line. And Boaz does it.
And then whenever we hit Jesse, I was just reminded of the fact that like Jesse is David's dad, and whenever Samuel comes and says, "Hey, I'm here to anoint the king," Jesse says, "Okay, I'm going to bring my sons before you." He brings like the oldest, the biggest, the strongest, goes one by one, and Samuel keeps saying like, "Surely this one looks like a king." And God says, "Don't forget, man looks at the outside, but I look at the heart." And so then they go down to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to where he's like, "Man, none of these." God says no to all of these. Jesse, are you sure that there's not another one? And he's like, "Well, there's the runt. He's out there watching the sheep out in the field." And he's like, "Bring that one." And God says, "That's him."
Yeah.
And then David ends up being known as a man after God's own heart. So God doesn't look at his outward stature. God looks at his heart and sees that it's after him.
Yeah. So thus far, we're here to Jesse. Thus far, we don't have a super honorable list of names on here. I mean, we can look, and of the people that we know things about from what the Bible says, we've got Boaz, who was honorable, Ruth, who was honorable, and everybody else. There's something something in their life that you're like, this guy, really.
And the reality is, like, if we knew more of Ruth's story, we would see that like she was a sinner too. So she may not have this massive scandal like some of these others, but like none of these people is perfect. We just have more of a glimpse into some people's sin than others.
Yeah. So if you think your family's nuts, feel free.
There's hope.
Oh yeah.
Rest.
Well, it gets way worse too as we continue on. I mean, but like, so Judah told Tamar that she was more righteous than he.
Yeah.
So, but yet neither one were righteous. So it's just
So yeah.
fun. And then we have here, and David was the father of Solomon by wife of Uriah. So just the fact that they don't say Bathsheba's name, because Uriah was a Hittite, I think. So yesterday, Parker brought it up. Like Bathsheba would have had the pedigree of a Jewish woman. She came from a Jewish lineage, where Uriah did not. He was a Hittite. So the importance of that part. And she committed adultery with David. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's
Which
where Solomon comes from.
Yeah, it's just interesting. So, like, scripturally, we see that in that one specifically, David was the one in the wrong. It doesn't really indicate that, like, whether Bathsheba was, whether it was consensual or not. Like, really, if the king calls you, it's not exactly like, hey, do you want to get together later? It's you go.
You will come in now.
Right.
Yeah.
So David was the one abusing power in that case.
Yeah. And even though at the very top of our passage today, we see that Jesus is celebrated as the son of David, that David is the one through whom the Messiah is going to come. Here, Matthew makes a point to say, to list evidence of possibly David's greatest crime.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, David the king. By the way, he was also a murderer and an adulterer.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that because just with you speaking, like, wife of Uriah. So him saying that part, I'm like, is it pointing out like David killed him?
Yep.
He had him killed. He put him on the front line.
Yes. It wasn't David's wife.
Right.
At the beginning, he had Uriah's wife. He did end up marrying her after he killed Uriah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're off to just a shiny, honorable start in Jesus's bloodline here. So verse 7 down to verse 11. Pray for me. And Solomon, the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam, the father of Abijah, and Abijah, the father of Asaph, Asaph, the father of Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat, the father of Joram, Joram, the father of Uzziah, Uzziah, the father of Jotham, Jotham, the father of Ahaz, Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah, Hezekiah, the father of Manasseh, Manasseh, the father of Amos, and Amos, the father of Josiah, Josiah, the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon.
Oh, man. You did really good. I'm really excited.
94% or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And on the second try, I flubbed it.
Yeah, you did good. I want to go back, though, earlier. Sorry. I do this to us all the time. I do it all the time.
Are you going to make me read this again?
No. I just want to say that because when you were saying it, and his brothers here in verse 11, that and his brothers for Judah was talking about the whole nation. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. So Judah and his brothers, the 12 tribes of Israel came from Judah and his brothers.
Yeah.
It's just such an interesting contrast that's happening through this whole thing. And like, we should feel some tension because it's like, yep, Jesus is a Jew through and through. He's a son of Abraham. Like, there's not anybody who's more, Jewish than Jesus. Also, we're going to list a whole bunch of Gentiles in his lineage.
Right.
And it's just setting you up for this tension of Jesus, he's going to be a Jew, but he's going to not keep the salvation within the confines of Judaism. But he's going to start ministering to Gentiles, which is not something they were a fan of.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so, sorry, I keep doing this, but Abraham, like, back to that, whenever he, this stars in the sky and the sands of the seashore, like, the sands of the seashore represented the Gentiles and the stars in the sky represented the Jewish. So just like how those two collide and they come together, and here we get to see it full functioning. So, yeah.
And same kind of contrast where you have David the king, who is a murderer. Like, David the king, even though it's the best point in Israel's history, it just, like, they just tank right after that. And so it's like you've got this peak performance kind of moment. Yeah, this is the good life for Israel. Also, it didn't last very long at all.
Didn't Parker explain it yesterday? Like, where it was like, here's the best of the best.
Yeah.
Then it goes like, okay, we're getting a little worse. Oh man, now it's like real bad.
Yeah.
No, now it's really gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't say it like that, but
there wasn't
even,
if David was the golden age, there wasn't really a silver age after
and then a bronze.
No, because Solomon, like, even though he was the wisest, he was not good.
They went to a styrofoam age real quick. Real quick.
I hate styrofoam.
What?
this is a Rin, but I just
Very.
cannot stand the feel of it, the sound
What?
of it. Like it
But
gives
it
me
keeps your
chills
cups,
everywhere.
like your
No.
drink so cold.
No, I hate
Styrofoam is
So you
Nathan's
prefer plastic?
kryptonite.
Styrofoam is my kryptonite.
Wow.
Okay, moving on.
I think we need to just stay here for a couple weeks.
Okay.
What do you think,
Okay.
guys?
I kind of want to like scratch on a styrofoam cup for you.
Oh, I would be out of here.
It's so the really the styrofoam of kings. Solomon. So Solomon, he built the temple. God told David, "No, you're not going to build the temple. Solomon's going to build it." He builds the first temple. He riches and wisdom, and yet he married hundreds of women, and their religions led Solomon to idolatry.
And the Bible specifically says that he did evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Yeah. The first person that in this list that we see who did evil in the eyes of the Lord, that we're going to see of the list of kings
Of the list
that
of
comes
kings,
forward.
yeah.
Because you'll see if you go back to the books of Kings, First and Second Kings and Chronicles, there's that list. And Rehoboam did evil in the sight of the Lord, and Abijah did evil in the sight of the Lord. There's this continuing pattern, and then there will be a bright spot in the line of the kings, and then back to the evils. So Solomon starts that with his idolatry. He didn't stay devoted to the one true God.
Mm-hmm.
And that took off with Rehoboam, where we see Rehoboam, Solomon's son. Rehoboam takes over. He had advisors that were his dad's, but he didn't listen to those guys and how he would treat the northern part of the kingdom. And because of that, the kingdom breaks off into the 10 tribes in the north that were Israel, and then Judah, its own kingdom down south.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then Abijah does the same. He reigned for only 2 years. He committed all of the sins. This is 1 Kings 15. All of the sins his father had done before him. His heart was not fully devoted to the Lord. And I saw that kind of pattern as well, that even most of the kings who did what their best to honor God, their hearts weren't fully devoted. 1 Kings 15:3. His heart was not fully devoted because he sought God to win a battle, but he still did part of the idolatry that his father did.
Even some of the best, it would say that they left the altars to the Baal and Asherah.
Yeah, that was even the good ones. They didn't take down the high places.
Yeah.
Asa,
So that's the main theme that runs through all these kings, as we see, you think of a promise to David that there would be a king in his line. And then you see over and over again, is this the one? Nope, not that one. How about this one? Heck no. Not that guy.
Heck no. Not
No.
N-A-W.
N-A-W.
Yeah. Asaph, King Asa in 1 Kings 15. King Asa, he righted the ship for a bit, but again, that his anger led him for the kingdom to be at war. There, Jehoshaphat, again, he did walk in the ways, but at one point, Jehoshaphat has a great story that God told him he was going to win a battle, to go out into this battle, but to have the singers leading the way, to have the worship team leading the way instead of your army singing praise to the Lord. And the nations that were allied against him, they started fighting each other. Just got put that on him. But he didn't remove those high places.
I was just going to say with verse 8, you will have to say these names. Joram.
Verse 8, you said?
Joram. And
Joram.
Okay. Uzziah, the king of Judah, who was struck with leprosy for daring to enter the temple as a priest to offer incense.
Yeah.
Uzziah was not the immediate son of Joram. Nope. Joram. There it is. See, we can still mess up names. It's fine. There were, but there were 3 kings between them.
Yeah.
So it was Isaiah, Joash, and Amaziah. Okay,
like
that sounds great.
Confidence, right?
Yeah,
Confidence.
yeah. That's what does it
Confidence.
for us. So it was actually kind of normal for omissions. It was a common practice for names to be left out in genealogies.
Was this the grouping that you found that
Mm-hmm.
that there was a curse, right?
No,
is that
that is
later?
in verse 11.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But yeah, so Matthew is marking in this genealogy a specific number of people in the line. So we go down the line. Yeah, you said Uzziah had done well, and then went to burn incense in the temple, and he got angry when the priests confronted him, and that's when God gave him leprosy for the rest of his days. That pride got him.
None of us know about pride, do we?
No. Jotham, he did well, but again, didn't tear down the high places. And those high places were shrines. So shrines to Canaanite fertility gods, shrines to Baal, and the Asherah, the Semitic goddesses during that time. So the Asherah poles that were put up, and some would take down, others would then rebuild. But at no point was everything cleared out after Solomon had started building these things for his wives.
Yeah, so you have like David is purely devoted to the Lord. Like we're going to worship God and Him only. And then Solomon introduces this what's called syncretism. So like we'll still worship God. I'm going to build like the coolest temple to God, and it's going to be beautiful, gorgeous, and exactly to spec for what God wanted. But then we're going to have also all these other places that if you want to like worship God on the weekend, but then like you need to have a baby, you might need to go to the fertility goddess over there, or your crops aren't doing well, you might need to go to this one, or you need your enemies to be smited, you might need to go to this one.
Yeah, I trust God, but I could use some extra help.
It can't hurt, right?
Yeah.
All the help you can get.
Yeah.
And God does not tolerate that.
He doesn't like it very much.
No.
Yeah. And it definitely makes me remember those times where I've done, I trust God, but boy, I'm sure worried about this thing over here. And I'm just, my stomach's in knots.
Yeah. Find ways to hedge your bets in case God doesn't come through.
Yeah. Verse 9, we find Ahaz. This is, you talk about people in the line of Jesus who you don't want to celebrate. This is a dude. So Ahaz, not only did he engage in pagan worship, but part of that worship was also sacrificing his own children. And we had talked about Michael during the Joseph series or the Christology series. He talked about the altars to Moloch, where you would lay an infant in the arms of Moloch, and they would roll down into the fire. And as terrible as that sounds, here is a king in the line of David who would be in the line of Jesus who engaged in this.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. I think
that's exactly right.
Yeah, yesterday, whenever you guys said it, my heart immediately got so sad because I can't even imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
But for them, it would be like, what's more valuable than, if you really need one of these other gods to come through, what's more valuable than an animal sacrifice? Human sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that was what was, they're pulling in just like the worst parts of the culture around them.
Yeah. 9 generations from David. And so then Hezekiah, who did what was good and right and faithful before the Lord, his God. But Hezekiah, he was healed of God. He was about to die. God gave him a few more years, but Hezekiah made the mistake of showing off Israel's riches to people from Babylon.
Again, a little bit of a pride goes before the fall moment, because literally that's what causes the rulers of Babylon to say, like, maybe we should think about taking over Israel because they've got some great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And a few generations later, it happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Manasseh, evil, detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Amos, evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Not the prophet Amos.
Exactly, the king.
That
not
was
the
it
prophet.
was actually that was a question for me yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't get to ask. I'm like, is this the same?
Right.
So no, I'm glad
it's a
you pointed that out.
Different Amos did evil. He also he never humbled himself in the eyes of the Lord. He forsook the Lord. I like the past tense of forsake. He forsook the Lord, the God of his ancestors, and did not walk in obedience to him. Then Josiah, a bright spot here. Josiah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, walked in the ways of his father, didn't turn his sight away. And then Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon, that's when they get taken away. Babylon. Anything else in that section?
I just had the deportation to Babylon was 586 BC. So if we think of that, like Daniel, that's what I always think of when we think of Babylon. That area was Daniel.
Yeah, very cool. Putting timestamps on this has also helped me stay engaged with it. So trying to figure out, okay, and going back to the Kings and seeing what was going on there and seeing which of the prophets were working during the time of this king and that.
Yeah. And so deportation to Babylon is kind of like, you just see, if you think of this section starting with, hey, the kingdom of Israel is doing great with David, down to deportation to Babylon, there's literally like, the kingdom is obliterated.
Yeah.
The temple's destroyed. There's nothing, you cannot point to the kingdom of Israel.
Yeah. All right. So verse 12, go ahead.
All right. Here we go.
I'm rooting for you, buddy.
Yeah. Come on. Put your hands together.
And take them apart and put them back together.
That's right. After the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel. Shealtiel, the father of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, the father of Abiud. Abiud, the father of Eliakim. Eliakim, the father of Azor. Azor, the father of Zadok. Zadok, the father of Achim. Achim, the father of Eliud. Eliud, the father of Eleazar. Eleazar, the father of Mathan. Mathan, the father of Jacob. Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations. From David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations. And from the deportation to Babylon to the Christ was 14 generations. Get on your feet.
Boom.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm going to just say my notes from this part because I don't have a ton. And then,
yeah, sure.
Okay. So, first of all, I can't see Zerubbabel and not think of when we did the Old Testament timeline. I just,
why is that?
It makes me think of the silence and the hand gestures that we did with it.
She's making hand gestures.
I am.
If you could see, you'd be in awe.
Yeah.
And then so there's
fantastic.
names in here that it's not the same person. So after we have the father of Abiud. Huh? Did I say it right?
Oh,
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. That's whenever
Confidence.
the years of silence happens. So after that part, but Eliakim, I know like names, this is not the same person, but Revelation, we had the Eliakim part 2 with him with the key of David and anywho.
So his
the treasures.
namesake.
Yes, for namesake. It's a name that we've seen before. And then Jacob, the father of Joseph. This is not, Joseph, the husband of Mary. So it's not saying that he is the father of Jesus. And also I got to talk about it yesterday, but I love how there's a Joseph present when Jesus is born and his dad's name is Jacob. Because so if we go back to the potential series, same thing. Jacob had a son named Joseph. Even though he's not in Christ's lineage, we just get to see him usher in a baby, Jesus. I don't know. It's cool things to me.
Yeah. As you're talking about the time of silence, so I think Parker mentioned it yesterday, that whenever you got Zerubbabel, he's the last one that we see actually mentioned in the Old Testament, right? We don't see his son, Abiud.
Right.
Abiud.
Abiud.
Yeah. So the rest of these, would have happened in the intertestamental period. So after the Old Testament is closed, and it's silent, there's no more prophetic writings, no more words from the Lord. Israel still had these. So these were people who were still being born that led to Jesus.
Yeah. Yep, I'm doing it again. Sorry, verse 11. You asked me about that part. I'm really sorry. But Josiah and Jeconiah, they passed over Jehoiakim because of 2 Chronicles 36. He was so wicked that through the prophet Jeremiah, God promised that no blood descendant of his would throne Israel. So we see that in Jeremiah 36. If someone of the blood descendant of David through Jehoiakim, he could not sit on the throne of Israel and he be king and Messiah, because this would curse the curse recorded in Jeremiah 36. So back to that, but now back to where we are. We see in 17 verses with 46 people over a span of 2,000 years, just in this little section. So we know people have been taken out. So it's not specifically 14, 14, and 14, but because of memorization purposes, it would help them memorize the people better. And we see that more in Genesis with how the writing is done there, because it was passed down orally. So with the 10s and the 7s and stuff. So anywho, I just think it's super neat.
Anywho, the father of.
Yes. That was good.
Yeah. So it was kind of fun talking yesterday for a little bit about like these 14 generations in each section. Like there are a number of interpretations for why that it would be like, why people would be omitted. Because we know, like if you just go back and check other records, this is not literally every person who's been born since Abraham. There are people omitted. So it could be some for memorization purposes. Like that's a really good reason. And there is precedent for that happening, that the Jews would talk about, they would talk about, or they would leave people out for memorization purposes. There may be people like that curse that you mentioned, that's like there's reasons that they're omitted from it, because God is thinking of the lineage differently than just the bloodline, but it's that plus something else. Or you might also have like a numerology kind of reason. Like, Jay, you want to share some about like what some people think?
Do I?
What some people think the 14, 14, 14 means?
Oh man, do I? So for more information on it, look up the Hebrew practice called gematria, Gematria, gematria. So it is a numerology.
We will also have it as a resource
and
on our page.
Oh man, yeah, over on the church sermon resources page, Stephanie's going to hook us up and have some information there. So, and it's funny, this first sentence that I read is pretty hilarious. The explanation for the number of 14 is actually widely agreed upon by those who study Matthew. This is the first time I've ever heard of it. I've never heard any preacher talk about it. I've never heard about any theologian talk about it. So, take that as you will. But it goes on to say, it is the sum of the number of the Hebrew consonants. So this number 14, the number of the Hebrew consonants in the name of David. Even in English, we sometimes use letters for numbers, as when we number the points in an article of a presentation. This practice in Hebrew is called gematria, and each of the 22 consonants of the Hebrew alphabet represents a number from 1 through 22. The 3 Hebrew consonants of David's name stand for 4, 6, and 4, which when added together equals 14. So by giving us 14 generations in each period, Matthew is calling attention to David as a crucial figure in the story of Israel. And widely agreed upon that that's the reason why there are 14. That's not even widely agreed upon at this table, guys.
I mean, so God's big and can do what he wants to. So if that's something that actually was going on, then that's verifiable, that's the way Jews thought of consonants and everything, then I don't have a problem with it. It's just like it's hard to know, being so distant from there.
Yeah. Context. And it makes you wonder what kind of treasure map is on the back of these scrolls that Nicolas Cage needs to come and
Oh man. Okay.
It has something to do with Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I'm ready for a sequel.
I like those movies, man.
So there is this genealogy in Matthew. There is also a genealogy in Luke.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. They are not the same names on this list. What are some of the hypotheses as to why the names are different on the list?
You want me to go? So I love the difference between Luke and Matthew, just because Luke starts like backwards and works his way back to Adam, where Matthew starts with David and Abraham, and specifically Abraham whenever he fully gets started in verse 2 and works his way to Jesus. So,
which makes sense even from the Luke writing to a Gentile audience. He's going to tie him back to just like being a human.
Yep.
Versus Matthew, who's like establishing his right to the Jewish throne.
Right. So also like this has been taught. So Matthew is the legal standing of Jesus. And then where Luke would be more blood lineage. Correct?
Didn't we? I think we actually, so we had quite a bit of discussion about this, and it's a little confusing because part of where the confusion comes in is that Joseph has two different people listed as his father. So Joseph, Jesus, who was the husband of Mary, Joseph, who was the husband of Mary, had two different dads listed, and there's a number of explanations for why that is. Yeah. So the basic versions are an idea that maybe Joseph's dad passed away and it was another kinsman redeemer situation, in which case he would legally be one man's son, but biologically be another man's son. Or the idea that one is tracing Mary's lineage and the other is tracing Joseph's, because as we talked about earlier, whenever you married into a family, she would have been considered to be their daughter, not just their daughter-in-law.
There's no word in Greek for daughter-in-law
or
father-in-law.
Father-in-law. So like Joseph would have had Mary's dad like listed as his father. So chasing Mary's blood lineage and Joseph's and I tend to actually like that reason hypothesis better than the other, because it would basically have to take kinsman redeemer twice. So not only did Joseph's dad die, but Joseph's dad died. And I'm like, that's confusing to me. So I lean and tend to go more of like, this is his father-in-law, and that's why the name is different.
So going through Mary's line in Luke.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which also, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Through Jewish tradition, they believed that men actually passed on the sin through, which we've talked about, like, no, this isn't something that, sin is passed down through sperm. Like this is, anyways, I just tend to like it. Like,
yeah. So one interpretation would be that Matthew is Joseph's lineage and Luke is Mary's. The other interpretation, and this is the legal versus biological lineage of Joseph, that's both Joseph's, but one is legal and one is biological. That's espoused by church father Eusebius. And he's quoting some other like lineage documentation of how this happened. And he would say that Matthew is actually his bloodline and Luke is his legal line. So those are the two different like interpretations. Either way, sometimes these will be held up as a contradiction in scripture, like that it's an error that Matthew or Luke got it wrong, but they can't both possibly be true. Either way, there are ways to reconcile this, and those would both be, valid ways of interpreting these passages.
Oh, for sure. I just think it's a neat discussion that we can have over like, why is this a little different? Let's figure this out. We've all talked about like how our love for Jesus is by knowing and learning more about him and growing in our knowledge of him. So to me, I'm just like, this is fun. Let's dive more into this and see the differences. But it doesn't mean that the scripture is wrong or inerrant. It just means like there's other possibilities.
Yeah. So here we're at the end of this section.
Yeah.
But if you remember in the beginning of this episode, we talked that this is the first week in a new series in Advent, as we're awaiting, as we're preparing ourselves for the coming of Jesus and the second coming. And this week's theme is hope. How do we get hope after reading this genealogy of Jesus?
I see it, and I have hope for a number of reasons. So one, just seeing that like God had a plan and intentionality throughout the whole thing, and he promised 2,000 years before, and still like even so that he was patient, but he was able to bring it to pass, which is just amazing to see God's control in that, and that he is faithful to accomplish his promises. So that lets me know that like I can trust him, that like my salvation is secure in Christ and he is coming back for me. And the things that he says that he's going to do in my life, he will do. That gives me confidence. And then also just seeing all of the brokenness in this kind of, tying back to Stephanie's big idea, but like, man, I don't know what your family line looks like, or what your life has looked like, or what kind of person you've been. But there's redemption available. And Christ is like bigger and better than that. So that kind of hope for my life and for my family is huge.
Yeah. How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, mine is kind of saying the same thing that Nathan just said. Just like if we look at this with a hope perspective of looking at the genealogy of all of these broken, sinful, gross people that may have like, our sin looks different, but it's still sin. And just that there's hope, and that there's security almost, I want to say, like knowing that regardless, like he still has us, and he's still willing to use all of our stuff for his good, for his glory, no matter what. And there's just so much, and the patience that comes through that as well. Like there's such a patience that was put on the people to wait for him, and that now we have that patience as well as we wait on the second coming of the Lord.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, that our hope isn't generated by how well we're doing at following him, but our hope is generated through him. And as we place our trust in him, he can give us hope.
Yeah.
Man, man. Well, that's this week, guys. Advent week 1, hope. Come on back next week. We're going to talk a little bit about peace.
I was just going to say, don't forget to I did a look at Jay, and he's like,
Yeah, she did a look like she wants to go back to verse 5.
No going back to verses. But yeah, we do have sermon resources on our Cornerstone community.
Cornerstone.community.
There it is.
Yeah, head on over, cornerstonechurch.community. You'll find some sermon resources that Stephanie puts together each week. You can check out what other cool things we've got going around. But man, we do thank you guys for joining us. Once again, if you would, go rate the podcast on the platform you're listening. If you have questions, comments, complaints, and we even have written down, if you'd like to make fun of how we pronounce things, or if you want to give me an attaboy, because I can really use an attaboy, because I nailed almost all of those.
Wow.
today.
Attaboy, Jay.
I needed that this week.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate that. But you can email us at warehouse@cornerstone.team, TEAM, warehouse@cornerstone.team. Man, it was good to talk about this week.
So good.
Yeah, so good. Say bye, Nathan.
Bye.
See y'all.
Bye.